This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and good to be able to bring back the lunch to the Lunch and Learn. Last week was Tanit Esther. Hard to keep track already, but the fast day, so there was no lunch, just learn. Today we have the lunch and the learn. Okay, class, come to order. Okay, all right. So Pesach, as we know, is when we talk about uh, our traditions, meaning Pesach is something that even amongst those who might not be so observant, might not be celebrating, keeping all of the holidays, all events, but Pesach holds a very special place in our hearts and in our religion and in our nation. You see that very much in Israel, right? That Leil HaSeder, in Israel there's only one Seder, they get it right. There's the one Leil HaSeder, the night of the Seder. And everyone, families all get together to celebrate Pesach. Rabbi Avram Tversky, who's the author of so many incredible, prolific books on psychiatry, on psychology, on Judaism, on the merge of all those. So he has a beautiful, beautiful hug of a book, which is titled Generation to Generation. And there he tells that his grandfather had lived in Belgium before World War II, escaped ahead of the German occupation, and before leaving Antwerp, he had buried many of his Judaica items in the hope that one day they could be retrieved, and after the war, they were indeed unearthed and sent to us. Among those items was a beautiful spoon with a decorated artistic design. My father, Rabbi Tversky writes, my father was overjoyed with this spoon because it brought back the early childhood memories. It had been given as a gift to his grandfather. My father used the spoon at the Seder and then passed it around for us to use. I was thus in possession of a fourth generation item. This was used by the great tzaddik Rabbi Muttal of Harnestopol, and is a reminder of how I was connected to him. Prior to my father's death, he divided his few family treasures among the children. I'd enjoy seeing you have them now, he said, and he gave me the Seder spoon. My children use the spoon at the Seder, as do their children. To the little ones, it is a very unusual, ornate spoon. Before too long, though, they will know that the spoon was used by their ancestor, Rabbi Muttal of Harnestopol, and that this concrete item is evidence of the chain in which they are an important link. So much drive, so much importance, correct importance, is given to the fact that we are a chain in this illustrious link of the Jewish people, stretching back from, sorry? A link in the chain. I missed it. Right? Oh, thank you. A link, I stand corrected. A link in the chain of this illustrious nation with all that we have endured. And here we are, thousands of years later, ready to go back into Pesach, ready to come together to lunch and learn and hear more about Pesach and connect ourselves even that much more. I was talking to Sheila Sampson early this week, and she was so proudly saying to me that she is a link in 7 generations. She knew her great grandparents, parents, herself, children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, and what a grounding thought that is. I'm the youngest in my family, so I'm told that I met my great grandmother Rose when I was little, and I have this memory of sitting on a carpet in front of a very old woman in a rocking chair. But when it comes to memories, right, it's always hard to know, is that what I actually remember, Or is that what I was told had happened when I was very young, and that then becomes incorporated into memory? Memory is a very unscientific means of determining what happened in the past. But that's who we are. We are a link in this chain, and it is so important for us to appreciate where we came from, and only then can we, please God, successfully pass it on to those who come after us. So let's look at our source sheet. Let me get the right one here. There we go. So I'm moving this now online. So anyone who's online, if you want to say something, if you raise your hand or motion, I will not see it. You'll need to speak up. Okay. So there really is the miraculous existence of the Jewish people. Famously, Rav Yaakov Emden said that people often say, oh, if I would experience the miracles of Egypt, if I would experience the splitting of the sea, then I would believe, then I'd be observant. And he said, in fact, the miracle of Jewish survival eclipses any of the miracles that might have taken place in Egypt or in the desert or at Mount Sinai. The very fact that the Jewish people has been so persecuted and still are such a dynamic force, A, that we exist, and B, that are such a dynamic force in the world. Look at the front page of any newspaper, and on certainly 2 out of every 5 days, you're going to find something Jewish there. Israel, Jewish, that is the role, the central role that we play in this world. All point, I think, 0.02% of the world population that we are, but we play this central role because this world is God's world with God's plan, and we play a very important role in that God plan. So let's see, even from a non-Jewish historian, source number 1, Professor T.R. Glover, The Ancient World. No people of the East has had a stranger history than the Jews. The ancient religion of the Jews survives when all the religions of every ancient race of the pre-Christian world have disappeared. All that existed beforehand, all these different idolatries that existed beforehand. Again, it is strange that the living religions of the world are all built on religious ideas derived from the Jews. The great matter offered to historians is not what happened, but why did it happen? Why does this race continue? Why does Judaism live? How did it really begin? He writes, these questions will not be answered here in my book, but there lies the uniqueness of the Jews. So let us see exactly where it did all begin. And we have this concept, we'll soon see some other sources, how it is aligned. As we know, let's go to number 2. Rabbi Mordechai Becker, Gateway to Judaism. As I always say, this is required reading for those going through conversion, and it should be required reading for everyone. The Jewish festivals are not mere commemorations of past events. They enable us to access the spirituality inherent in a particular time of year. From the time of creation, the month of Nisan was designated as a time of beginning, birth, and renewal. So Jewish history, as we always say, it's not linear. It doesn't start at one point and stretch out. It goes in orbits. It goes in cycles. Ma'agal Hashanah, the cycles of the year. And we circle back to these different points in time, each of which offer a unique spiritual accessibility. And that's what we re-enter every time of the year. We re-enter. Pesach is associated with spring because it is a time of the physical birth of the Jewish nation. Also, as we often say, What happens here in the physical world is a mirror, is a reflection of what's happening in the spiritual world. Pesach must be celebrated in the time of spring. The Torah requires that. That is why we Jews, with our lunar year, which loses 11 days a year from the solar year, we need to adjust for that to make sure that the holidays stay in the proper seasons. And we adjust that by adding in 7 out of every 19 years. We have an added month. We have an Adar Bet. We have a 13-month year. That is how we stay in sync, that our holidays are aligned with the solar year, with the actual seasons. Muslims have a lunar calendar and do not have any adjustment. And therefore, they're now in the month of Ramadan. Next year, Ramadan will begin and end 11 days earlier. So in about 5 years, as opposed to it being now in the springtime, it's going to be in the winter time. And go another bunch of years, it'll be in fall, it'll be in summer, it'll be back to spring. Basically, every 33 years is how that's going to work. 33 times 11 basically gets us to our solar year of 365, give or take a couple of days. But the reason why we have to be aligned is, like we said, that the physical world is a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual world. Spiritual world means opportunities that are there for us, doors that open, opportunities that present. And if down here, spring is a time of this rejuvenation, this coming to life, that which is dormant is coming to life, Pesach marks that time of a spiritual opportunity of waking up, of blossoming, of coming to life, of freedom, of throwing off the shackles of what has been and entertaining that which can be. He writes the second paragraph in source number 2, Pesach is associated with spring because it is a time of the physical birth of the Jewish nation. Just as the soil produces a new crop in the spring, and the first buds blossom on the trees, so too the Jewish nation was born in the spring. The Jews were slaves, considered by society as subhuman, and continually engaged in hard manual labor. They were under constant pressure. Even their time was not their own. In this sense, the Jews as a people were in a state of non-existence in Egypt. Pesach celebrates our redemption from that state, our physical coming into being as a nation. This was followed closely by the beginning of our spiritual nationhood. And that's why, starting with Pesach, the day after Pesach, we start to count the days, the Sfira to Omer. We count the days until we get to Shavuot, because we have the physical exodus and the spiritual arrival. We left Egypt, but spiritually, we were not yet that spiritual nationhood, as he writes. That took place when we accepted the Torah at Mount Sinai on Shavuot. Pesach, therefore, occurs and must occur in the spring, the time of birth and creation in nature. Because, as we said, we must have that correct alignment. Now, if we're talking about a birth of a nation, so we're going to see that actually there are 3 stages that take place in a birth. We have the fetus in the womb, we have the actual birth, and then we have the growth and the maturing that takes place. And each of those align, let's see, source number 3, the Sifsei Chaim, Rav Friedlander, Hashlav Rishon, the first stage, Galut Mitzrayim, the exile in Egypt. Nimshalahi liyemei ha'ibur. This is compared to the time of pregnancy, of the ibur, of the fetus in the womb. Kamo ha'ubar ha'mitrakeim mitpateach mibifnim lo nira mibachutz. There is an internal development which is not seen from the outside. We do see that the child is growing, is developing as the mother, the pregnant mother, shows more and more. But all that which is taking place inside is all concealed from our view, right? And it is, of course, as miraculous as anything. It is incredibly miraculous how from two half cells, a being, a living being with a supercomputer more greater than any of our computers, that is monitoring and managing and controlling all of these systems that are keeping the baby alive when the baby cognitively is goo goo gaga, not even that at that point. Absolutely, absolutely miraculous. It is beyond. I had the pleasure of having a little Zoom meeting with with uh, with two sweet little girls, Allah and Allah Elman's granddaughters. So they're in Texas now. So I got together for a little learning session with them, and it's so sweet. So they shared with me a Devar Torah that they gave at someone's house on Friday night, which was basically saying over another discussion that they and I had had. And I had said to them then, they said, like, how do you know that God exists? How do we know that God exists? It was a great question. So I said to them, I said, let's say you're walking along in a main forest and you come across something that looks exactly like this. Something as sophisticated, as technologically complicated as this. What conclusion would you draw? Someone's been here. Someone made this. And if I were to say to you, actually, what happened was there was a very strong wind and it blew off some part of a tree, and that it was a very thin part, and then it got whitened in the sun, right? And then there was some sap that came down and it fell onto that, and that's how we get this paper, right? You'd say delusional, right? Delusional, right? Obviously, if this is there, someone had to have made this, right? So then people say, yeah, but this is inanimate, right? But when it's alive, there it could always be changing, as we know. Viruses, right, keep mutating, as we know with COVID. There are changes, right? Though science can never explain how life actually began, right? That they can't do, right? But the truth is, the fact that it's alive is not an explanation. That just adds that much more to the question, right? How does it, or if you imagine you found something like this that keeps reproducing itself, wow, how does it do that? I mean, it's just incredible. From these two half cells, we get this supercomputer that's then able to control the millions of events taking place every second. So, as miraculous as that is what was going on with our nation. We'll have another lunch learn. Hopefully, we'll have time to work on it another week about why it was necessary to go through slavery, right? Pesach, we all thank God for taking us out. But why did he put us in? Or why did he allow us to go in? Right? That's sort of the elephant in the room that people don't often touch upon, but it is crucial. It is a very, very crucial point to focus on. I have a request also to do some Shir Hashirim. So we'll have to see how we manage everything over there. I don't want to get too sidetracked. Yeah.
Why slavery?
I don't want to go there. That's another week. I don't want to go there. Okay? Right? But the same way that there are miraculous developments of the fetus in the womb, there were miraculous developments taking place in us as individuals and as a nation when we were there in Egypt. Therefore, in that slavery. Furthermore, we continue, the Jews did not perceive that they were becoming God's nation. It appeared to them as if there were no justice and no judge, and that evil was prevailing. Right? There's a very, very beautiful, you could search it on YouTube, called Conversations in the Womb. Right? Beautiful song and beautiful words based on a medrash about two twins in the womb having a discussion, and one of them is saying, I believe there is a world to come. I believe there is more after this dark environment that we're in. And the other one says, you're crazy. You're a dreamer. What you see is what you get. This is the world. Right? And then that's the debate going up and back. And then one of them goes into this dark tunnel. And the non-believer is bemoaning, oh, I've lost you, and now I'm alone over here. And the other one says, no, you don't understand. Here it's light. Here it's a world. Here there is so much there, right? And the Medrash, of course, is talking about the debates that people have here in this world. Is there life after the womb? Is there life after death? But we don't view death as death. We view death as the transition. There is an unveiling taking place this Sunday, right? And so one of the people asked my wife if they should wear black as they wore black to the funeral. So my wife responded, there's no reason to wear black, and even at a funeral, it's not a Jewish idea to wear black. It's a secular idea that death is dark and black and foreboding, and therefore we wear black. They wear black. Whereas we have tremendous sadness at the personal loss, but we recognize that death is a transition to light, to clarity, away from here. So all this is taking place. Now, as this was taking place, there appeared to them there was no justice, no judge, and evil was prevailing. However, if one looked beneath the surface, one could see God's providence at work. And then we go to source number 4, which he explains is Hashlav Hasheni, stage 2, which was Yitziat Mitzrayim, Hanimshalat Leleida, the exodus from Egypt compared to birth of the child. The birth phase is reflected in the verse, has any God ever come before and taken for himself a nation from within a nation? And our sages, Chazal, say, as a person extracts the fetus from the womb, so too we were extracted from the land of Egypt, from the culture of Egypt, from the nation of Egypt. The exodus occurred suddenly and quickly, just as the fetus leaves the mother's womb. Suddenly and quickly. Easy for a man to say, I know. But relative to the 9 months of gestation, the actual birth is very fast. After an extended period of God's concealment, we suddenly experienced open miracles. As the Medrash relates, a simple maidservant at the Reed Sea saw more miracles than the great prophet of Ezekiel. Right? That which they experienced was a greater revelation of God's presence. And just like, as we said in Conversation of the Womb, the child comes out and sees that there is a whole world there of illumination. After all, that we had 210 years. It's only the last year where the miracles started happening and leading to the Exodus and the splitting of this sea. Lastly, just 1 minute, Dove. Source number 5, Hashlav Hashlishi. That is now the third phase that we enter, and that is Hashlav Hashlishi, Hayamim Shebein Yitziat Mitzrayim Lekabalat HaTorah. That is the transition from the exodus of Egypt towards our receiving of the Torah. La'achar Aleida. After birth, Ba'im comes Yemei Hagedila, the days of growth, of maturing. Kol HaMadregot Shekibalnu, all of this was, until now, was b'matana. All of this was given to us as a freebie, as a gift, right? A child's conception and time in the womb is a gift. A child's birth is a gift. Once we enter this world, now we have our responsibilities. Now it is us, and we're the ones who need to make it meaningful. Everything until was a matana. Aleinu la sotan yisod v'kinyan b'nafshenu. right? The next phase is for us to do the work of acquiring these spiritual levels and building them into our personalities, taking these events, taking these holidays, taking these teachings, and making sure that it impacts who and what we are. Nimsa, the result then is Shemem Tet Hayamim, those 49 days are Yemei HaChana, are days of preparation, Lihitbasasut HaKinyanim HaRuchaniyim Shezachu Lahem, in order to Lihitbasasut, to incorporate into who we are these spiritual acquisitions that we made. In order to prepare ourselves for receiving the Torah on Har Sinai. So these are the stages that we went through, the 3 stages: Egypt, Exodus, Mount Sinai, which is in the womb, birth, and then the maturing and the growth. Yes, Dov, what did you want to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, this week we had a special thing about that was 9 months. Usually 9 months corresponds to the astronauts were there 9 months and re-entered.
Okay, interesting.
Very interesting.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, but this purpose of this of the Yitzhak of the Exodus was not just for us as individuals, but it was for us to congeal, to come together as a nation with a very, very unique and important, serious responsibility. And that is, as we see as source number 7, Shekol Mitziyut Am Yisroel Niyata Al Yedei Yitziat Mitzrayim. All of who we are came about through the exodus from Egypt. Lo kechol ha'amim shenetavu la'amim me'elehem. Other nations became on their own. Masha'en kein Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, Hashem Yitbarach asa otam la'am. God transformed us into a nation, b'yetziat Mitzrayim, by the Exodus, v'lo la'am ragil, and not like just any nation like other nations, ela rather le'amo, to become His nation. Am Hashem, the nation of God, as it says, v'lakachti etchem li la'am, I will take you for myself as a nation. Vayiti lachem le'lokim, and I will be to you as your God. Again, God is, Judaism is fairly unique when it comes to religions, in that we are particular and also universal. Meaning, we don't say that God is the God of the Jews and of no one else, and therefore become Jewish or else, right? Except Islam, or else, right? Except or except Jesus, or else eternal damnation. That's not how we look at it at all. We view it as God being the God of humanity, the God of the universe, including each and every human being and each and every item that exists in this world. But human beings are unique in our ability to make choices. So God is the God of every single human being. At the same time, there are different pathways to connect to God. The nations of the world have the Sheva Mitzvot, the 7 Noahide commandments, as their pathways to connect to God. And God has a particular relationship with the Jewish people, manifested by the Torah, and those pathways of the 613 mitzvot, pathways of connecting to God. A mitzvah is an opportunity of connection. That is what a mitzvah is, an opportunity of a connection. And therefore, Hashem will be to us as our God, God of the universe, but having a particular relationship with us. V'zoi matarat kol yetziat Mitzrayim. And this was the purpose of the Exodus from Mitzrayim, the Tachlita, and its purpose, Liot Am Ovdei Hashem, that we have a nation serving God and its children, Osim Ritzono, doing his will. As it says, I will lift you up with kanfei nisharim, on the wings of eagles. Vayiti li segula, you will be to me a treasure amongst all the nations. Mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. That is what we are meant to be. Now, one of the most important core Jewish beliefs is the idea of hashgacha pratit, that there is not just this overarching supervision of events that go on in the world. Right? I always quote Rav Moshe Feinstein that Shabbos is our testimony that of God as a creator. Holidays are our testimony as God being involved and orchestrating events and being involved in that which takes place here in this world. But it's not just on a national level, but rather it is on a very, very personal level. And that is the idea of, we call it hashgacha pratis, this hashgacha providence that is pratit, that is individualized, so that God is aware and involved with all that which goes on in our lives. In that way, in a very fascinating way, we are both subjects and we are objects, meaning we are the subject, right? We've got to make our decisions and take responsibility for that and make sure we do good things here. We're also objects. We're also acted upon by things that go on around us. But Hashgacha Pratis teaches us that even when those things happen, it's for a reason. And it's presenting us opportunities to how do we react, or better, how do we respond? And that's why God introduces himself at the Ten Commandments. I am Hashem, your God, who took you out from the land of Egypt. Not the God who created the world, but involved out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And when we hear the word house, we automatically think of a very, very personal space. And it's even in that personal space of our lives and our thoughts and everything that God has this awareness and this involvement. Yes, Reb Shlomo. You have to be more specific than that.
Yeah. The world is in such a state these days, and our people are threatened.
Yeah. And this is nothing compared to our history, right? We're all very spoiled, right? We're all very spoiled, having been born in and grown up in a post-Holocaust world, right? But the question is not just about what's happening today. The question is what's been going on since time, as far as we know. And that's what I was alluding to before, that by being this nation, there is a responsibility that we carry, that we have to make sure that we are keeping in line. And interesting, going on the email tomorrow, the Erev Shabbos, I have a YouTube link from a Muslim scholar, right? Just about a 3-minute talk that he's giving. And what he's saying is that the Jews have to stop talking about our connection to Israel because of archaeology, our connection to Israel. Archaeology is true, of course. And our connection to Israel because of Holocaust, right? Right. Our connection to Israel is because that's the land that God gave to the Jewish people. And we've got to reinsert God into the mindset and into the hearts. And something that has moved me very much, that I think has happened since October 7th. No, I'm not saying that, right? You have hostages, Nebuch, who were held hostage for hundreds and hundreds of days. And what kept them going was There was one very secular Israeli, right? That the one bracha he remembered was Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So before he would eat anything, he would make the bracha Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And one time his captors were listening or watching Israeli television, and he heard someone make the bracha of Borei Minei Mizonot. So he learned another bracha of Borei Minei Mizonot, and that's what he would say on the food that he would have. And when he came out, his family asked him, what is it that you want? And he said, I want a kippah and I want a cup so I can make kiddush this Shabbat. And that it was how Hashem had kept him. We know the story of Agam Berger, also who became Shomeret Shabbat while there, meaning that this was the wake-up call, right? And something that that Natalie encounters very often when she's interviewing and meeting different women to go on the trip. And amongst Israelis, often there is a mentality of, I'm Israeli, but not connecting that to being Jewish. It's a separate identity. And if that's the case, then what claim do we have to the land more than anyone else? What claim do we have? I'm Israeli? Oh, so that started in 1948. That's when Israeli began. But one of the things that we have, I think, grown as a people from this last experience is that Israeli, Jewish, it's one. And we have to recognize that. And one of the things that he speaks about that's always a point that I try to make. He said, you speak to the most secular of Arabs, the most atheist, not observant at all. What do they say? Inshallah, with God's will, right? Right? God is part of their essence.
They mention it all the time.
Yeah. And we need to bring God back into our minds, into our hearts, into our conversation, into our focus. And that should be our go-to. Be'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, please God, thank God, to make that part of who and what we are. And I would say that all of these events, I spoke about this past Shabbos, that all of these events, there are two psukim in the Torah which are considered to be a book in and of itself. Vahi ben Sa'aron uvenucha yomar, considered to be one of the books of the Torah. There are 85 letters there. If you have a Sefer Torah that's all worn out, if there are 85 letters that can be collected, gathered together, it has the status, it has the holiness of a Sefer Torah. These two psukim speak about Vahi ben Sa'aron, when we're traveling. And the Chidah says, then we say, Hashem, rise up, cause our enemies to scatter. And the Chidah says that ultimately this will be the largest book of all the books of the Torah, these two psukim. Why? Because these two psukim are going to be opening up to show how all the travels that we went through, all the travels and travails that we've gone through, how each of them have been leading, have been God's hand behind, leading to the ultimate redemption. But you're right, Steve. Now, do we see it? Absolutely not. We can't possibly fathom or wrap our head around it. And I've told this story 100 times. I'll tell it another 100 times. The rabbi who survived the Holocaust, and someone said to him, Rabbi, do you have questions? And he said, oh, do I have questions? I got more questions than you could ever imagine. But I also have the emunah, the faith that God has the answers. But I'm afraid if I ask the questions too stridently, God's going to say, Kimahain, come here, and I'll give you the answers. So I'm not going to ask so stridently. And when the time comes, that's when I'll get the answers. So if we're going to look at events and say, oh, therefore God's not involved, right? So there are three possibilities, none of which are consistent with Jewish thought. Either God doesn't know, that's inconsistent with Jewish thought. God is unable to intervene. God doesn't care. Those are the only three possibilities to explain, to believe in a God who says whatever happens, happens. He doesn't know, doesn't care, or can't change things. None of those are compatible with the foundations of Jewish belief in God. And therefore, the only recourse is what's lacking is not in God. What's lacking is in us, in our understanding. Yes, Leah.
Just a little comment, a little correction maybe.
Please.
About the Israelis not being religious, being very secular, and not identified with Judaism. Yes, unless they get into a personal trouble. Everyone that I know that had like a personal crunch, an issue, or even a national, like they talk to God.
Yeah.
They don't say on
Yeah.
a normal day, okay, Bezrat Hashem, but they talk to God.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not a prayer
100%.
but they absolutely
100%.
talk to God.
Yes, and that's beautiful.
So that's the connection right there.
Yes,
They don't
yes,
have to practice
but it unfortunately it takes a little bit of a crisis, right, to bring that out. And that's what I was saying to Steve and Dala, that the so October 7th, yes, but we've got to take that core and turn that into, there's a beautiful teaching that we say from the Chedushei Harim, one of the great Rebbes of Gera Hasidim. We say in our Amidah, Baruch Atah Hashem, Magen Avraham. Hashem, you are the Magen, the shield of Avraham. See, he explains that to mean there is a spark of Avraham in every single one of us. Avraham, who was in a crazy environment, and yet he found God. There's the spark of Avraham in every one of us, that Hashem is Magen. Hashem guards that spark of Avraham, right? And that never, right? We call it in Yiddish the Pinta Layid, right? That spark of the Jew that can never be taken away, right? But our job is to take that little spark and turn it into a fire, turn it into ish, right? Be'ezrat Hashem. And I'm saying these events, as heartbreaking as they are, these events do just that. They bring it to the core. Yeah.
There's no atheist in the foxhole.
No atheist in a foxhole. Yes, I like that
I
expression.
think the Israelis and Jews all over the world have to be trained to think that they have right to that land. It's God-given right.
Yeah.
We're not there. It's not a
Yeah.
It's not. We have to stop justifying.
Yeah. Direct. Yeah.
Negotiate it away.
Well, that's it. That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, all the forefathers of Israel, Ben Gurion, Golden Era, they did a disservice to the country. They did a disservice.
Yeah, they did a tremendous service, but in that respect, they did a disservice. Yeah. Interestingly enough, let's see the last source we have over here. But one more after that also, I'm not even sure. Yeah. The Medrash links certain things to Yetziat Mitzrayim, to the Exodus. Source number 8. Source number 8. Yeah. From the Babylonian Talmud. Rava says, Lamali, why is it the Torah mentions Exodus in connection with these following three things? The prohibition against charging interest on a loan, the mitzvah of tzitzit, and the mitzvah to have honest weights and scales. And now we go through them. Number one, do not give your money for interest. I am Hashem your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt. What does that have to do with Egypt? What does charging or not charging interest have to do with Egypt? Number two, there should be tzitzit on each corner, a thread of turquoise wool. I am your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. What is the tzitzit Egypt connection? Number three, shall have correct scales, correct weights, correct drawing and liquid measures. I am Hashem your God who took you out from the land of Egypt. What is the connection of honest scales, weights, honest business What does that have to do with Egypt? And he answers, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be he, says, I am he who discerned in Egypt between the drop of seed which conceived a firstborn and one which did not conceive a firstborn by the 10th plague. So too I am he who will bring to justice. So it lends money to a Jew with interest while pretending that it went to a non-Jew. And for someone who cheats others by keeping his weights, measures in salt, which makes him heavy without changing their appearance, and from someone who puts fake blue dye on his tzitzit and claims that it is authentic turquoise techelet. Meaning what? That I am Hashem, your God, who is involved in all the things that go on. And I expect, I demand that your standards be held high. Just as an aside, so it shouldn't be misunderstood. There's nothing immoral about charging interest. The same way that I could rent out an item, right? It's worth money to you to have this item. I could rent it out. So too, if it's worth to you to have this money, this access to these funds, there's nothing wrong in renting out money. There's nothing immoral whatsoever in charging interest. But you don't charge your brother, your sister, your mother, your son, your daughter. You don't charge them interest. That is why when it comes to one Jew to another Jew, we're not allowed to charge that interest. We have to recognize that this is family that we have over here. I'm sorry? Well, right. Actually, very interesting that so how do Israeli banks work? How do they work? So if you walk into any bank in Israel, you will see a document hanging there, which is called a heter iska. Heter, that which permits iska, dealings. And a heter iska is a halacha is always going to adjust. It's not going to change, but it will adjust to find a way within the confines of halacha that something necessary will become permitted, right? A good example is our Eruv here, our Irvine Eruv, right? So an area needs to be enclosed in order to be an Eruv. We're not enclosed. Well, one side of the triangle of our Eruv is the wall of the 405. That we could say is enclosed. That's a wall. The rest, what are we doing? We have a string. We have a string that goes from pole to pole to pole. You call that an enclosure? Well, yes, the very first mission of Eruvin, I started today as part of the Daf Yomi. The very first mission, Eruvin, says that it's Surat HaPetach. If you have the formation of a doorpost, up, over, that's considered to be, even though you can't have an opening more than 10 amma, let's say 16 feet, but if it's a Surat HaPetach, that's considered closed. So in modern cities, where if we don't have an Eruv, mothers, families are not coming to shul, it's going to tear apart the fiber of the family of the community. So we utilize that halachic framework and we go pole to pole to pole. We have a series of doorposts, of door frames surrounding, and that's become. So we don't say, well, we can't, it's not feasible. The conservative movement looks at it more that, well, we've moved far away. So yes, you can drive as long as you're driving to shul. Orthodoxy will not say, well, yes, you can as long as, but we'll find within the confines of halacha, we'll find manners that will make it permitted in order for the smooth functioning. In the business world today, banking world today, it has to work with interest. So what do we do with this law of prohibited interest? We do what's called a heter iska, meaning what a heter iska does is it restructures the deposit that I made into the bank. I deposit money into the bank. Why does the bank pay me interest on that?
Because it uses my money to
what do they use that money to make a lot of money. That's why, and they'll give a fraction of that back to me, right? That's how the banks make their money. So they invest whatever it is. They find ways to make money. Now, I could become a partner with someone. I can give someone $1,000 and say, listen, right? I want you to invest this $1,000 for me, and we'll share the profits that we make from your investing, right? That's perfectly fine. That's not, I gave him $1,000, he's giving me back $1,200. That's not interest. He invested it, right? Now, the only thing is, investing, if we make money, we make money. If we lose money, we lose money, right? But I could feasibly say to someone, something, I want you to invest this for me, and I'm an investor along with you. I'm investing along with you. But I'm willing to forego my true profits on this investment if you'll give me a set amount, right? So you might make 30% on it, right? Last year, the market, you made 30% on it, right? I'm foregoing on the 30% gain on my investment, but I want a guaranteed 3% on my investment, right? Even if the market goes down, right? So basically what we've done is, what the rabbis did was restructure it from a interest to an investment. And every bank in Israel, my dear friend Leah, you'll see every bank in Israel will have a heter iska hanging over there, right?
If I take a loan from the bank, for example, it's not the same thing, right?
Even that works with a heter iska. Yes. Yes, it restructures it into an investment. It restructures it into an investment. Yeah. Okay. But the idea is that the Yetziat Mitzrayim was meant to bring us up to recognize that Hashem is involved, not just in making us into a nation, but in every aspect of our lives. He wants us as individuals to become uplifted, and by that we become an uplifted nation with the recognition that just like by the Exodus, God knew exactly what was going on in the most concealed, hidden of places, so too God knows what's going on in all of our dealings, and to be uplifted in that respect. And as such, number 9, our last source is Rav Dessler, Michtav Meliyahu, Zman Cheirutenu. As we said before, it is the time of our freedom, meaning that coming out in the springtime, this is a time where there is this potential for freedom, for making sure that what was yesterday does not lock me into what will be tomorrow. Hi hashpa'a miyuchedet. This is a special spiritual opportunity, shel cheirut, for freedom. Hanitenet l'chol nefesh mi Yisroel b'zmanahu, given to every Jewish soul at this time of year. Hazman hazeh einu tarikh histori. It's not a historical date. Lachug bo chagigat simcha shavra, to celebrate what happened way back when. Ela shemidei shana b'shana, but each and every year he knows man bo. This he knows man. This is a time bo mesugalim, where it is auspicious, it is aligned for us. Lilchom leman chirut nafshenu, where we can go to battle for the freedom of our own nefashot, of our own souls, and the growth that each and every one of our souls can accomplish, can reach. Yes.
I always, okay, we're talking about God. Okay, it looks like the whole world is divided into two halves. The Abrahamic religion, people who,
Okay.
and non-Abrahamic religions, the Eastern world. How does it happen that this God is only God of those people of one hemisphere?
Who said he's only God of one hemisphere?
So how does the non-Abrahamic religions
They have, I don't know much about.
How do they, are they connected somehow? Do they have any connection to our system of beliefs?
I cannot speak on behalf of Hinduism or
all the other
Buddhism.
non-Christian religions, which are much better than to live for Jews. They don't have anti-Semitism there. Because there are multiple gods.
Yeah, well, yeah. Look, the religions that came after Judaism,
but they came even
very often, they viewed themselves as 2.0. As well, we're the new improved, right? This is what, right? And therefore that has historically, with Christianity, though, thank God now, in our generation, not nearly, right? And the opposite in many cases of deep friendship, and the Islamic world, right? So if I am 2.0, then, right, anybody here still using any floppy disks on their computers? Right? How about a hard disk? How about a disk? Right? No one uses a disk anymore. I remember the big thing. We went from the floppy disk to the hard disk. Who uses any of that now? Right? It's all in the cloud. Right? Right? I mean, so when someone is still plugged into the old, it undermines those who feel that there's now a brave new world. And that's why historically there's been a lot of anti-Semitism from Christianity and Islam, whereas the Far Eastern religions, right, they never came to replace Judaism. They didn't branch off from Judaism. So therefore, we functioning, practicing Jews were never viewed as a threat to who they are. But God is the God of the universe. God is the God of every single human being on this planet.
But didn't Hashem say at Mount Sinai when the nation accepted the commandments that other nations will hate them?
There is a teaching that Mount Sinai, Sinai comes from Sinah, that there's going to be this animosity because, to quote Hitler, the Jews have inflicted humanity in a physical sense, right, with circumcision, and in a moral sense with conscience. Yeah. So
what is sinah? What is sinah?
hatred, animosity. Yeah. Yeah.
But how come the other hemisphere, non-Abrahamic religions, don't have any hate and acceptance?
So I thought I gave a reason for that. They never viewed us as replacing them, right? They never viewed themselves as replacing us, in which case our continued holding on to these outdated, right, was an affront to them. Our paths didn't cross. So therefore, there was not. That's the reason that resonates with me. I don't know. I'm sure there are other reasons given. Maybe I'm right.
They have hatred for other things. There's been atrocities among themselves, just not in relation to our world.
Yeah. It's not that there's no hatred. Unfortunately, it's hard to find the people without some of that. Okay, my friends.
Thank you.
We'll call it over here. Bruchim Habayim, welcome.
Thank you for your hospitality.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for your hospitality.
Of course. Do you live around here? Are you visiting here?
Yes, we did. There are few words for stranger. First, we visited your shul many years ago. Pre-COVID time.
We met at
And we all enjoy it.
Okay.
So, beautiful class. Thank you very much.
And you live here in the Irvine area?
No.
In Fullerton.
Thank you very much for your hospitality.
Oh.
And one more thing, I have two things. The third thing, about providence, you were talking about.
About what?
Providence.
Yes.
State
for each.
Providence.
State.
God's providence in the world.
Yes. For each holiday or Pesach, I try to prepare something for people who come. Okay? And this year, I decided exactly what Pesach give us today. Because many people, affiliated, not affiliated, different people. Okay? And it's happened that today we are not planning to come here. When we come here for different reasons, we are not planning to step here and eat lunch. Then we understand we have class. Eventually, you was talking exactly about issue that I was interested to prepare this speech.
Okay.
And
Okay.
number 4 and the last.
Happy to be at your service.
Thank you. And the first, yesterday, we went to see a documentary. Name of the documentary, October 8th.
And I just, in the email going out tomorrow, I have the link and encouraging people. It's going to be showing another week still to go see the documentary.
It's streaming on Amazon too, but it's better.
Is it streaming already on Amazon? I think it will be.
Oh, it will be.
It's not yet.
Yeah, it's.
We went to Orange in
AMC theaters, yes.
It's not an easy movie to see.
No, it's not. It's not a fun movie.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I question, do we really need it? Is there something there which we don't know? Why do we need that experience?
But I think also another factor is the theaters did not want to show it. AMC decided to show it, so I think we should show some appreciation, solidarity, support for that.
But
Also.
for another side, you know, there were 3 of us. 2 of us, 1 more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the whole.
But when we went, sorry.
Yeah, but it's kind of feeling of unity.
Yeah.
In this case,
Yeah.
no, doesn't matter who we are. It's unite us.
You should know the way movies work now. Typically, there could be 5-6 people in the theater, for the many showings they have.
But the funny thing was when we went and got the ticket, all the seats, most of the seats showed that were taken. When we went in, it was half empty. Apparently, what happened? Many people bought tickets, but they didn't have courage to go and actually watch it. They didn't have so they just bought the tickets for support, and they ended up staying.
I'm not sure. I don't think. I think it might be something else. Yeah. Okay.
There's a new movie called The Thousand Lions.